Ever thought that you were helping someone only to then realize that they were the ones helping you? This past week, I spent my nights playing guitar for the evening worship sessions of Flower City Work Camp. And if you're not familiar, it's an incredible ministry that God has been moving through powerfully in Rochester for decades. Every year, literally hundreds of teenagers give up their entire spring break to spread the good news of Jesus by painting people's houses and doing little sidewalk Bible studies with kids and playing pickup basketball games with local youth, and every night having a worship service. And it's incredible. After long days of, sleeping on church floors, waking up early to do devotions, getting out there, doing manual labor, sometimes standing out in the rain, playing game after game of pickup, you would think that these teens would be dragging themselves in to the evening worship service like the living dead, right? You would think that a worship team would have its work cut out for them to, wake these kids up, to breathe some life into them, to get them excited to worship Jesus. And that's what we were there for, right? We were there to help. That's why I was there. I was there to help. My dear friend Max Ramos, a couple weeks prior, hit me up and he's like, "Bro, I know that you're a lead pastor and super busy now and everything, but I need a favor. My guitar player for Flower City had to bow out, and I've gone through all my contacts, and no one can do it, and I really didn't want to bug you, but..." Now, as soon as I received that message, I immediately wanted to do it. I mean, I love Max, I love worshiping Jesus. I love playing guitar, and we all know that lead guitar is essential for bringing the revival, By the way, where are my guitar players? Where are you at? We need to connect. Let's get this thing going, okay? Let's go, guitar players. All right. So of course I wanted to do it. Bring some life, bring some revival to the worship times. I love Flower City, and me and Flower City, we go way back. I've served on the worship teams in past years. I've been the main worship leader. I've been the main speaker, but not since I've been a lead pastor. And it's because it's a lot, every single night of the week. So I thought about it, prayed about it, talked with Susanna about it, consulted with the elders about it, and decided I'm going to do this. I'm going to help Max out. I'm going to help bring the revival. Only to find out that they would be reviving me. A Monday night, instead of dragging themselves in like the living dead, those kids burst through the doors with a thunderous roar. They could not have been more ready to sing and dance and shout and jump in worship for Jesus. It was incredible. And it wasn't just the first day. It was the second day and the third day and the fourth day. Night after night, I thought I was there to revive them. And in reality, they were reviving me. If you've lost hope for our world, if you've lost hope for a generation, I pray that this testimony could revive that hope for you. Hundreds of teenagers in our region worshiping Jesus and serving and spreading the gospel. kind of good. I thought I was there to revive them. Thank God I was wrong. Yeah. And I want to thank you for deciding to spend this Resurrection Day with us here at New Hope. This celebration of revival. I'm going to be using those words interchangeably because they're synonyms. No, not like the delicious synonym buns you had early Easter morning. Synonym words that mean the same thing. Resurrection, revival, something dead coming to life. I'm glad you chose to spend this special day with us. It means a lot. He is risen, right? And that is good news. But if that's where the story ends, then it's only good news for him. Last week we began to feel these shakings, these tremors of revival. We were in the Gospel of John, chapter 11, in the story of a man named Lazarus. And we felt the foreshocks. You know, tremors come before an earthquake. They're the foreshocks. And we felt those foreshocks of the greatest seismic event in human history, the resurrection, the revival of Jesus. And today, this is what I want to show you, that the revival of Jesus was a foreshock. It was a foreshock of the next greatest seismic event in human history, the revival of you. If you missed last week, you can find that message on our YouTube channel, but don't fret, here is a quick review to get you up to speed. The guy's name is Lazarus. And we found ourselves in his story because his name means the one who God helps. That's my name too. And that's your name. We're the one who God helps. And he was sick. And we learned that that word sick isn't limited to cough, cough, sneeze, sneeze. That it means weak. It means poor. It means lacking in anything, being in need. Now, if you don't think you qualify for that, I told you last week, ask the person next to you. They'll let you know. No, bro, you are sick. You do need help. And there's nothing to be ashamed of about that, because it is your need that qualifies you for God's assistance. If you don't need, then you don't qualify. But if you do, the currency of God's economy is not how much you have, it's how much you need. Lazarus was in a town called Bethany, and we learned that it either means the house of misery or the house of sweetness. And they can be one and the same. Your house of misery can also be or become your house of sweetness. And we saw that Jesus is the one who turns the bitter waters sweet, that the cross is the tree that turns the bitter waters sweet. We heard people say that Lazarus is sick, and Jesus said this sickness will not end in death. We heard people say he's fallen asleep, and Jesus said, I'm coming to wake him up. We heard people say he's dead, and Jesus said, it's not the end. And we heard people say, but it's too late. It's the fourth day. And this is what Jesus says about that. There are only 3 days on my calendar. Yesterday, today, and forever. And to me, they're all the same. For I am the same yesterday, today, and forever. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last, the I am that I am that I am. And in John 11:25, he said, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live. Do you believe this? And we asked each other that same question. Do you believe? I want to ask you again. Do you believe that Jesus was resurrected? Or do you believe that Jesus is resurrection? Those are two different things. I'll give you a clue, though. They're both good, but one is more better. Do you believe that Jesus was resurrected and therefore he lives? Or do you believe that Jesus is resurrection and therefore you live? If the story of Easter is Jesus was resurrected, then Jesus lives. Good for him. Yeah? But if the story of Easter is Jesus is resurrection, then we live. So I hope to help you answer that question. Do you believe this? I hope to help you answer that through the story, continuing in the story of Lazarus today. But Pastor, it's Easter. Shouldn't we be talking about Jesus dying on the cross to forgive us of our sins, descending into hell to take back the keys of our authority, raising from the grave to give us new life, ascending into heaven to give us an eternal place in his presence? Yes, we should and we will. And I want to show you that Lazarus' revival was a tremor of Jesus' revival, and that Jesus' revival is a tremor of your revival. Tremors come before earthquakes. And an earthquake is a violent shaking, a rocking back and forth of the tectonic plates. And it shapes the earth's terrain. And today, we're going to be experiencing a shaking, a rocking back and forth from the story of Lazarus to the story of Jesus, these two tombs, these two resurrections, and sometimes it will feel jolting. Just so you know, it's working. Because these are the shakings that shape the terrain of our faith. I gave you this handout in hopes of helping a little bit. You'll see that the story of Lazarus is in lavender. I thought that was right for him. Lavender for Lazarus. And that the story of Jesus is in resurrection yellow, we'll call it. And I want to show you that Lazarus' story, his resurrection was a tremor of Jesus' resurrection, and therefore Jesus' resurrection is a tremor of yours. So we begin back at ground zero where we landed last week. Lazarus had died. And Jesus told this to his grieving sister, Martha. I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? Yes, Lord, she replied. Those are good words to say, by the way. Yes, Lord. I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who is to come into the world. As much as I hear great faith in Martha's response, I also hear some hesitation. She's willing to say, you're the one who is to come. She's willing to believe for someday. But she's having a little trouble believing for today. And don't a lot of us feel that way? Christians, a lot of Christians don't have trouble believing for someday. Yes, I'll have resurrection life someday. But what about today? Nonetheless, that's a good prayer. And if you've never had this conversation with Jesus, I encourage you to have it. You can have it today. You can have it even now. You can take Martha's words, if you don't have your own, and just tell him, yes, Lord, I believe you are the Messiah, the Son of God. And that's the kind of believing that brings you into the life. Just like that sunroom, stepping into that sunroom. In verse 31 says, when the Jews who had been with Mary, other sister of Lazarus, in the house comforting her, noticed how quickly she got up because she had heard Jesus came to town. She got up and went out. They followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. I know this is kind of a little thing, but it's a little tremor, a little foreshock of Jesus' revival. This word mourn is the Greek word kleo, and we see this exact same word next when we rock forward to the revival of Jesus and find another Mary. It's not the same Mary, but we find another Mary at another tomb shedding another tear. John 20, now this is the story of Jesus. If you're following along, we're in Resurrection Yellow now. This is the story of Jesus. Now Mary stood outside the tomb of Jesus crying, and as she bent over to look into the tomb. I tell you, tears are tremors of revival. Rocking back to Lazarus, John 11, verse 32. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Sometime I'd like to do a message based around Mary at the feet of Jesus. It could go something like this. The first time we find her at the feet of Jesus, it's in innocent infatuation as he's teaching her. And the next time we find her at the feet of Jesus, it's here in deep desperation, wondering why he let what she loves die. And then the next time we find her at his feet, it is in grateful adoration, pouring out the most costly gift of worship because she has tasted resurrection. That would make a good message. Maybe I'll do it sometime. But right now we're back with Mary, wondering, where was God when? Can you relate? Where was God when? And then again, when we rock forward to Christ's revival, the first Easter morning, we find another Mary and another curious case of the missing Christ. In John 20, verse 1, Mary saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance, so she came running and said, they have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him. Have you ever lost your Jesus? Have you ever lost your Jesus and you didn't know where you put him? I have. Couldn't find him when you really needed him? Maybe we can make sense of this, rocking back and forth between these two revivals. So rocking back to the revival of Lazarus. John 11:33, when Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved. Say, deeply moved. Deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Where have you laid him? He asked. Come and see, Lord, they replied. And John 11, verse 35, the shortest verse in all the Bible, Jesus wept. Jesus was deeply moved. He was troubled, in turmoil, in distress, inward, the words have this idea of an inward groan. And if we rock forward to the next time that Jesus is so troubled, we come to the Garden of Gethsemane the night before he went to the cross. Matthew, the mathematician, says that Jesus was full of sorrow. Mark, the writer, adds that Jesus was deeply distressed. Both of them agree that he was absolutely overwhelmed with grief to the point of death. And Dr. Luke reports that Christ was so disturbed, he sweat great drops of blood. Let me ask you something. If you were God, wouldn't you excuse yourself from such suffering? If you were God and you knew everything, you knew that sorrow only lasts for the night and that joy is coming in the morning, wouldn't you dry your eyes? If you knew that death was not the end, wouldn't you laugh rather than cry? Not Jesus. And he is God. So what does that tell you about God? That he would not excuse himself from such suffering. Jesus wept over his dead friend, even knowing what he was about to do. I'm telling you, tears are tremors of revival. If we are not ready to weep over what is dead, are we truly ready for revival? That bears repeating. If we're not ready to weep over what is dead, are we truly ready for revival? God grant us tears. Back we go again to the tomb of Lazarus. John 11:38. Jesus, once more, deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. Even the rocks cry out, telling of the great earthquake to come. Rocking forward to Jesus' final moment on the cross, Matthew 27:50, when Jesus had cried out again in a loud voice, he gave up his spirit. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn from top to bottom. The earth shook. The rocks split. The tombs broke open. The bodies of many people, holy people who had died, were raised to life. Did you know that? A man named Joseph of Arimathea took the body of Jesus, wrapped it in a clean linen cloth, and placed it in his own new tomb that he had cut out of the rock. He rolled a big stone in front of the entrance to the tomb and went away. There was a stone in the way of both of these tombs. Back and forth we roll from the tomb of Jesus, the God who helps us, to the tomb of Lazarus, the one who God helps. In John 11:39, Jesus says at Lazarus' tomb, "Take away the stone." I cannot hear Jesus say that without recalling the stone that was rolled away on the day he rose up from his grave. In Matthew 28:2, there was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and going to the tomb rolled back the stone. I hope your faith is being formed by these shakings and that you're beginning to believe even just a little bit that the revival of Lazarus was a tremor of Jesus' revival and that Jesus' revival is a tremor of your revival. If Jesus' stone could be rolled away, but he's God. Well, okay, if Lazarus' stone can be rolled away, the one who God helps, if his stone can be rolled away, maybe mine can too. But some might say it's too late. It's too late for me. I've been sick too long. My heart has been asleep for too long. My faith has been dead and in the grave for too long. And back at Lazarus' tomb, they thought it was too late too. John 11:39. He had told them to roll away the stone. But Lord, Martha said, the sister of the dead man, by this time there is a bad odor, for he has been in there 4 days. They thought it was too late for Lazarus, and rolling forward, they thought it was too late for Jesus too. On this morning, the very first Easter, friends of Jesus came to the tomb on the third day with spices and perfumes. It wasn't even the fourth day yet. They were anticipating stink. The fourth day is when stink starts. It wasn't the fourth day. It was the third day when they brought spices and perfumes. They were anticipating stink. Are you? Are you anticipating stink? It's not even too late yet, but you're just planning on it being too late. You're anticipating things will not go well. You're anticipating things are going to stink. You're already got the air fresheners going, and it hasn't even started yet. Are you living in the fourth day when there are only 3 days on God's calendar? They thought it was too late for Jesus to be raised, but thank God they turned out to be wrong. It was they who were too late. Again, back to Lazarus. I know you're probably getting whiplash, but such things happen when we're in the midst of tremors. John 11:40, Jesus said, did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? The tremors are getting closer together now. Rocking forward only one chapter, Jesus would again utter these words about the glory of God, this time in the context of his own death and revival. John 12:27, now my soul is troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour? No. It was for this very reason I came to this hour. Father, glorify your name. Then a voice came from heaven. I have glorified it and will glorify it again. The crowd that was there and heard it said it had thundered. Jesus said, this voice was for your benefit, not mine. Rocking back again. I know your head's probably getting dizzy, but stay with me. These are the shakings that shape the terrain of our faith. John 11:41, they took Lazarus' stone away. Jesus looked up and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I say this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me. And when he said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. And the dead man came out. Lazarus, the one who God helps. Worship team, you can come on back up now. The one who was sick, the one who was weak, the one who was in need, the one who fell asleep, the one who had died, the one for whom it was too late for resurrection. He came out. Lazarus' revival was a tremor of Jesus' revival, for Jesus too came out of the tomb. How do I know that? Because when they went looking for him, he wasn't in there. Matthew 28, verse 5, the angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus." They'd lost their Jesus. Jesus who was crucified, he's not here. He is risen, just as he said. But I say again, if the story of Easter ends with he is risen, then Jesus lives, and good for him. That's a good story. But doesn't it leave you wondering, what about me? What about Lazarus, the one who God helps? What about my sick places? What about my poor places, my needy places? What about my dead places? All the places that are too late to be raised in my life. Sure, Jesus lives, and that's a good story, but it's not the story he was telling. That might come as a surprise to some people who've done a lot of Easters. Jesus didn't say, "I will be resurrected and I will live. Believe it until the day you die." That's not what he said. Look again with me at our main verse. What did he say? He didn't say, "I will be resurrected and I will live. Believe it until you die." No, he said, "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live." Do you believe this? Do you believe it? I've taken up your whole Easter morning, shaking us back and forth until our heads spin. Example after example given of how Lazarus' revival was a tremor of Jesus' revival, and Jesus' revival is a tremor of your revival. And that's all I can do. I've done all I can do. The rest is up to you to decide if you believe this. And if you do, if you believe that Jesus' revival is for you, then we've got to start talking about how to live it. If Easter is more than he lives, if Easter is you live, then we've got to start talking about how to live it. And that's what we'll start doing next week together. We're going to be entering into a series. I don't know how long it's going to go because there's a lot to it. We're going to be entering into a series called My Revival. We're living in revival days. But it's one thing to watch the YouTube videos and to be happy for the people out there having fun in the sunroom, in the presence of God. It's an entirely different thing to go stand in the room yourself. Yeah? To have revival for yourself. And that is what Jesus paid it all for. That's it. That you may live, not someday, today. Yeah?